you respond to your horse, or the way you respond to your results with your horse, is your responsibility. And I say responsibility, not a reaction ability. And I'm going to explain why this is and why I use these two terms in a minute. But I'm also going to show you how. Hi, my name is Chris Adderson, and I'm the founder of Harmony for the Horse. It's an online rider's education program. Why is it that we want to be responsible rather than reactionable? And that's not a word, I know, I just made it up. But why do we want to be responsible rather than reactionable? Because 96% of everything that we do is from the subconscious mind. And what we do consciously is only 4% of our actions. So think about that for a minute. What does that mean? It means that 96% of the time that we are acting with our horses, it comes from our subconscious mind. So in other words, we don't know exactly why we do some of the things we do. But then afterwards, we justify it, or we try to reason with it. We try to make sense of what we did with our conscious mind that came from our subconscious mind. So how do we change our reactions from being reactionable to responsible in the moment? That's the key part, in the moment. How do we do this in the moment? We become responsible for addressing our subconscious mind. That's how we do it. So too often we're focused on the conscious mind. We want to learn more. We want more learning. We want more courses. We want more online courses. We want more books to read. We want more understanding. And that may be true to a certain point, but a lot of the times we do not lack for information. What we're doing instead, and what we want to do, is we want to train our mind in the right way. Training, reorganizing, reprogramming the subconscious mind. Success with our horses depends on a few things. One of them is our belief system. For example, we have a student in our program, and she came to us is struggling, and one of her symptoms, one of her complaints, was that she was continually getting hurt. First it was her elbow, then her back, then her ankle, and it just kept going on and on and on. And her horses are her passion. Her horses are her life. But this was always holding her back. Just when she thought she was going to start to make progress, she would get another injury. Something would happen. And she had some pretty lofty goals, right? She had a new horse that she wanted to work with, a young horse, and had high goals to reach high levels of dressage with this new horse, as well as an older horse that she'd had for a long time. And she wanted to keep working with this horse, but continually was interrupted with these injuries. And it was stopping her from progressing. So she had a lot of heaviness around this. She came in with a lot of heaviness and sadness, and was kind of in this push-pull syndrome, where it was like, I really want this badly. I really want to do this. My horse needs me. I need to do it. I want to do it. But now I'm injured again, and I can't. So what we did is we worked with her very deeply on her mindset, basically on her subconscious. And it turned out that she had a very competitive childhood. And it started when she was about 6 years old. She was involved in a very competitive sport, and she was constantly comparing herself to someone else. And it was one other person that she was comparing herself to. And this other person that she was comparing herself to, it didn't really make sense as an adult if we think about it, but as a 6-year-old child, that's all she could see. The other person was a lot older than her. The other person was a lot more mature. The other person had a lot more capability because of those two reasons. But she was constantly comparing herself to this other person, so much that it totally consumed her life. Every time she was with this other person, which was on a daily basis because she was training on a daily basis, every time she was with this other person, it was eating away at her. And being a 6-year-old girl, she didn't know how to deal with this. So what happened was she formed certain beliefs about herself from that experience. And that was that she was lesser than everyone else. And this then transferred into her riding. So once we pinpointed this, once we found out that this was the source of her belief system and what was really holding her back, she then started to see other areas in her life that she was being held back. Things like she wasn't listening to herself. She was disregarding her intuition or what she was being told or her gut responses. And she was enrolling in clinics or doing a certain system that wasn't nourishing her. But yet she refused to see that. Actually, she couldn't see that. And so she was just on autopilot and she was just learning, in quotes, by rote. There was no curiosity. There was no fun in it. There was no excitement. There was no creativity, no play. And when she started to realize these things, and she told us about this is how she felt, this is when we then could start to work on the strategy and techniques. We work very deeply on the mindset, and then we can start to work on how she's working with her horse. The strategy, the technique, the two processes together, technique and the mindset. And we made suggestions to her. And our suggestions were that she work on liberty. She went on to the modules in our program that involved liberty. And then we worked on how she used her bodies. Once we had released the energy behind these feelings that were and emotions that were trapped and physically within her body, we then worked on how her body moved. And this is when she started to really get results, because then her horse started to reciprocate back to her. She had the freedom now. She had the permission that she needed from herself. Once we got the subconscious and the subconscious on board with each other, to now make progress. And we changed her movement from dysfunctional movement to functional movement. The injuries stopped happening. And she realized she was not a lesser rider than any other rider. So as she started to make progress, of course, things start coming right. Other things started to surface. And this is where the mindset and the belief system are so powerfully and intrinsically linked together. As she worked with her horse, and we worked on the strategy, how to work with her horse, how to do it physically, with exercises, with different movements, then that strategic part of our program linked back again to the mindset part. So along the way, we helped her to keep releasing the blocks that were coming up. Most rider education is not taught this way. It's either do 101 exercises or mindset related to fear, but it's always on the very surface. And there's not the connection between these modalities. We use several deep modalities in our program. And this is from years of experience, years of helping hundreds of students. Then the technique that we teach you for you and your horse is specifically for you and your horse. We work genuinely deeper with you, and this becomes more powerful. And this is what leads to the effortlessness of it, the ability to repeat it, and the ability to have it reliable. So you don't have to keep going back and redoing stuff with your horse over and over again. So success on our horses also depends on our ability to speak our truth with our horse. So that means not being jaded by feelings of rejection or that we're not good enough or any other fears that we may have that we're dealing with. And we all have them. We all need to work through these things. And our horses will show us exactly what we need to work with. But when you work deeply and accept yourself in this way, just like the rider I was telling you about earlier, you no longer feel rejection. So you're not lesser than, And this is where the authenticity comes in. And this is where your horse can fully reciprocate with you. And that's when your results skyrocket. I've seen it time and time again with our students. So you become empowered. You move out of that stuck state. You move into the empowered state. And you then are able to be present because you are in your truth. You are present with your horse and you emote emotions from your truth and you move from your truth. So all these things are connected. Then you will have confidence. Your confidence builds as you get more and more successes. Authenticity is there and you have self-acceptance. Most of us are braced in life. We're worried. We're worried that we're going to get hurt, maybe. We're worried about doing something wrong and wrecking our horse or hurting our horse. We're worried about being rejected. This worry is what will hold us back. And that's why we don't put our deepest gifts out there, because we feel we're too vulnerable. So when we feel too vulnerable and we feel unsafe, then we're not our authentic, true selves. And so then we can't be as successful as we want to be with our horses. We can't build the bond that we want. We can't get the relationship because there's always that fogginess or always that cloud that's hanging over top of us. So we want to help you to feel safe, number one. So then your work with your horse comes out of that. Until you feel safe and in your truth, then the work with your horse cannot come out of that. It's not giving you some kind of worksheet or some kind of random exercise that you're to do and hope it works, or a cookie cutter method or a course that speaks to a lot of people. What we do is it's fundamentally for you and your horse. So then you're giving your horse what he or she needs. And what does that result in? It results in success. And with success comes the repeatability. You find out what works. You can do it over and over and over again. It's reliable because you've worked through these processes, and then you can repeat the success. So if you'd like support with any of these things that I've talked about, with the success, finding your authenticity, finding your truth so that you can have true success with your horse, with these means that I've expressed here, and this process, then go to the link that's somewhere around this video and we can chat. It's just a 15-minute chat. It's a free assessment which will help you to see where you're at, where you want to go, and how you can get there. All right, thanks so much for being here, and we'll see you next time. Bye for now.